What's up, Profitable Stylist? Here we go this week. We are talking about the keratin hair extensions, K-tips, and all other types of strands. Last week we were talking about, what were we talking about? Oh, tape versus weft.
I never know.
Yeah, we were talking about tape versus weft. And so in the middle of that conversation last week, the topic of bonds came up, and I had to make it the topic for this week. I had to talk about it. We were live on Facebook before we were live on here, so we're just trying to get everything sorted up and cleaned up. Try to go back and forth. There's too many things happening all at once. There's too much social media. It's way too much social media.
Yeah.
So I learned something about K-tip extensions. So there is keratin
exactly
bonds and there is K-tips, right? Yeah. So there is a difference. I did not realize there was a difference between the two, and it was just a play on words. So what is the difference, Bernard, between K-tip and keratin? Yeah,
I don't think either one of us really know. But
no, I know the answer.
But my business partner's been doing a little research, and he was telling us they're different. And I said, well, I thought the K stand for keratin. He said that's what they want you to think. So what's going on is they kind of shorten the name to K-tips because some companies are not actually using keratin. Now, that's always been the case. They just called them strand by strand or individual strands. And as keratin got really popular, look, Casper, after we finished our other, Casper's decided he wants to be.
Oh, now he wants attention?
Just a little bit before we get started. You got to go lay down. You got to go lay down. Go lay down with your brother. Go lay down. Lay down. Go lay down. Good boy. So.
Oh, I can't. Oh, man. That's going to goof up the stream.
You can't what?
No, I was asked to turn up my volume, but I'm not going to be able to do that. It'll goof up the stream.
Just get your mouth closer to the microphone.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do this.
So K-tips are just I thought was just a new word, new slang for keratin bonds. Keratin bonds were supposed to be the bonds that, made out of keratin, which is the same thing your hair and nails are made out of, a good hard substance that holds the hair in really well. But people always use different materials and products. And recently it's gotten worse. It got better for a long time, and now it's gotten worse where some people are using plastics. I remember Hair Visions used to brag about their whatever it was polyester. They literally said polyester tip.
There's plastic, there's beeswax, and then there's a resin, and that's where the beeswax comes in. Beeswax is a form of resin. And then there is protein, which is where the keratin name comes from as well, too. So those are the three main categories. And then within each one of those categories, that's where you have the quality control come in. And, what kind of plastic is being used, or what kind of glue or resin is being used, or what kind of protein is being used. So from worst to best, plastic by far is the absolute worst. Resin would be the mid-grade, and then protein, keratin would be the highest grade. And the reason for that is plastic, all of these types of extensions, this technique, this method has to do with needing to heat it up to be able to attach it to the hair. And when you're heating it up, it's releasing some kind of a fume or some kind of a toxicity. And a lot of these reactions that clients have, whether they're an allergic reaction or some kind of a physical reaction, it's not because of a keratin strand, it's because of one of these other forms, whether it's a plastic or a resin. And though that toxicity, that fumes that gets released because they're getting warmed up or heated up, that's what's happening.
I didn't even think about that.
That's what's happening.
I'm so sensitive.
Yeah.
I'm so sensitive to smells.
You are very sensitive, I know.
To smells.
To comments and smells.
And ice skaters and ballerinas.
So then what happens is with plastic, when it heats up, it becomes very pliable. But the problem is when it cools down, it hardens, and it literally can become knife sharp. You could literally cut yourself with it. And when you're laying down, or when you're pulling your hair back in ponytail, when you're brushing your hair, that abrasion, it creates little micro abrasions across the skin that people don't necessarily feel, see, or realize. But then over extended period of time, because of due to that constant friction and rubbing, that's where it can literally start cutting into your skin, becoming very painful. And because it's not flexible, it could even cause breakage in the hair shaft itself.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That was my first fear when we moved from round bonds to flat bonds. I really imagined a razor blade, like a two-sided, old-fashioned, double-edged razor, where you put the one razor in your face shaving thing. And so I thought, if we're gonna fold that bond flat and squish it, it's gonna be like that, and it's gonna be sharp on the sides. It didn't end up being as sharp as I thought, but I imagine I've only used she hair keratin bonds for so many years that I guess in the very, very beginning I used a few inferior products that shed, didn't work well, fell out, and I even used a little bit of the polyester. But we weren't doing them flat back then. They were all round, so I never did really get a feel for if I made a flat bond out of some of these other materials, maybe they would be sharp. The thing that I practically noticed about all the different materials made was there was a real fine balance on how well they stayed in, but even more important was when it came to the removal. How hard or easy was it to remove them? So some of the things you just mentioned, some of the softer products just didn't stay in well at all. And I remember friends of mine would say, even on stage with you guys sometimes, some of the educators that we'd meet from out of town or whatever come work, and they'd say, oh, we remove extensions in like 30 minutes. It's no problem. And then I'd say, here, come try to remove a few of mine. And they couldn't. I started to realize, you know what? You suck at putting them in. No wonder they remove so easy. You're probably removing them like a month or two earlier than me or my students also. So yes, I'm patting myself on the back a little bit here, but even within one brand that was really good, the better you put them in, the harder they are to remove. But then if you had a product that just sucked, when you put it in, it was going to remove easily. But then on the other end of it, and I just hit my computer again, on the other end of it, if you had a product that was stayed in too good, like super glue, then removal was next to impossible. And so then that's where a lot of damage came. So you could have people say, I got extensions that'll stay in for 7 months. Is that good? I mean, staying in longer does seem better.
Never coming out. It's like your padlock analogy. That's the padlock analogy, right?
It seemed like a great idea, but you really had this balance of, I want it to stay in really good, but hair grows a half an inch a month on average. So, 3, maybe a month or two more, 4 or 5 months, that should really be the limit because of the hair growing from the scalp and those bonds. They might still be in there really securely, but now you've got some shedding going on, you got some tangling above it that you have to watch, and so the longer you go, the more trouble you have there. We always found about 3.5 months was the sweet spot. The bonds were broken down a little bit. They all stayed in really well if done well. But now you're putting a removal solution on and you're kind of squeezing it up with a tool to soften it, and then it should slide right out. And here's the problem. It's not coming out quick enough, so I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to force it out. I'm going to comb over it 1,000 times and really loosen it up with a really fine-tooth, hard, bristled comb. And that's when you start causing damage. And the more it stayed in, like if it was a resin, like you mentioned, the more damage that was caused there.
Well, that was more with the plastics. The move to resin was exactly with what you're talking about. They were trying to come up with a way to soften it, to make it a little more pliable, a little more comfortable to wear, so it wouldn't be causing so much breakage during the removal process. It wouldn't be so hard to put it in either. That's where they started playing around with all kinds of types of glues and, like you mentioned, beeswax and other types of materials as well. It is softer and more pliable in that regards when you go to install it. The issue is when you go to remove it, it becomes over time, the more a resin-based material gets damp or wet, the more gummy it gets, and then the more it absorbs other things, and other things were sticking into it. And when you went to remove it, you were ending up with a whole bunch of residual leftover, and that was just becoming a whole nother mess in itself.
Right. And it sounds like we're dumping on keratin in general, but let's talk about the positive side. Like, what were the good keratin bonds? And what were
So
some of the pluses of it, and why did we ever do them? And why did we do them for like almost 2 decades exclusively?
so then that's where the technological, so that's the beautiful thing about goofing up and making mistakes, is eventually you make enough mistakes, you hit the gold mine the one time, and you discover it's like, oh, I just found something, right? So if
When you say that, it reminds me, I was using a hot glue gun, amber colored sticks, clear colored sticks, in a hot box. We were using hot pots. I know a lot of people listening to this are like, I used the hot pot. I used the hot pot. I did the glue gun. I cut hair off of a weft and put it in. Those are all the precursor big screw ups
Mhm.
leading up to Britney Spears' bad hair day that made her infamous for extensions, and of course made America known for damaging heads of hair with extensions. And it's like we've been fighting that ever since. Are hair extensions damaging? No, just on Britney.
No.
She
And that's why we got to leave Britney alone.
I know. I love Britney. I love her music. I love her
Oh man.
dancing. I know she's a little crazy, but I mean, her and Christina Aguilera, those were the icons of my, like, I don't know, teen, 20-year-old singers, pop. I know you liked a little heavier stuff than that
Mhm.
kind of music, but her
I
getting the
grew up with
extension.
Madonna. Madonna was in my time. I know I'm older than
Oh, I
you.
loved Madonna too. Her Mark, but Brittany was from Kentwood, Louisiana, and I'm in. It's only a couple hours north of me,
Ah,
so
got
we
you.
got to hear a little more of the inside stories, a little more of the the probably more rumors also, but some of the truth around the rumors, what actually happened, what was said to have happened, what the family members thought, why she did what she did. So we were a little more connected to what was really going on nationwide. Some local hairdressers were the ones that did her hair that was so bad too. So I got to know who those hairdressers were, and it wasn't all their fault. Brittany did abuse the extensions a little bit sometimes too. But it was a big deal in the hair extension world, and it
It
was
was
the
such a big deal.
it was kind of the end of the all the chaos of the individual strands and how they could be done from good to bad. And she was one of the really bad examples. And then they got kind of pre-made, pre-tipped, pre-sized, and that was the beginning. Like you're saying, all the mistakes, not all, but
Mhm.
a lot of mistakes were made before that. And then we got what?
So now we've got manufactured, consistent size bonds, keratin. Well, on the high end, at least if you're using the real good stuff, keratin protein bond. You know,
Right,
and it's
right.
and it's absolutely amazing in that regards, because now you have the ability to customize them. You can use a full bond, you can cut them in half, you can cut them in third, you can cut them smaller, you can put them a little higher up, you could put them a little lower, you could do all kinds of different things. And that's even given way to, now we've got rooted extensions, we have balayaged, we have
You can
ombre.
even do the under bond.
You could do under the application technique you mentioned earlier, going away from rolling to making a flat wrap bond. Those are two different techniques in how they're applied. And literally, like their names state, one looks like it's been rolled. It looks really long and thin. The other one looks more flat, more like a square. So it gave way, it paved the ways to so many different application techniques, the way those application techniques get further customized, and in the way the bonds are produced. And due to the way the bonds are produced, you used to have to buy in a bundle. I mean, they would literally come zip tied in a bundle, 50
Yeah.
strands, you
Yep.
know. And now you can order them in 25 increments. You can order them even in 10 increments. In
I
in
don't
like,
think anybody sells them in 10 except for us.
is it only the She Hair Extension brand
She hair.
sells them in 10?
Yeah. So that was interesting because way back when Great Lengths was selling packages of 25, and we were back then SoCap selling in packages of 50. But you could add, the funny thing was it was two little 25 bundles put together as a 50, and we
As a
promoted
50,
selling at
yeah.
50. But you could get a half a bundle if you wanted and order 25. Most people didn't know that, so we called a bundle 50. Great Lengths called a bundle 25. But what Great Lengths was doing at the time was they were also selling fantasy strands, And what they did different than us at the time was they would sell their fantasy strands in 10-piece bundles because they realized most people didn't want 25 red or blue or green pieces. They just wanted a few. So they cut it down to 10-piece bundles. So what Antonio did from a corporate view was like, well, it's a lot easier to just to package everything the same, and it gives people more choices. So let's, instead of just doing the fantasy in 10-piece bundles, let's put everything in 10. At first, I was like, now I got to order 15 packs of hair to get one full head. I hated it at first when it was 10 per pack, but then you start to see the advantages of it. Now I could do 15 different colors. Not that I did that often.
No, but you do like half of one color. You do like 7 packs of one color. You do 8 packs of another color, and it blends.
5 and 5 if you're doing
5,
3.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because then you can go and better than that, you can get a double tone color like a brown blonde color for a highlight up top with one. So now with let's say we're doing 5, 5, and 5. That's 3 colors, but one of those now is a double color, so we've got 2 colors here instead. So now we got 4 colors. I could literally do 3 double colors and have 6 different colors on the head with only actually picking 3 technical colors, 3 different highlight. So the color, I don't know, choices became way more better when we had 10 strands per pack. Yeah, you could customize so much more. And most of the time, to be honest with you, it was like we ordering 2 colors, but one pack of 10 might be the lighter color of the whole mix, just blonde. A blonde, because I might put 10 pieces around the whole top just to pull in that sun-kissed or extra lighter top look into the rest of it. But I would order sometimes 10 lighter and 10 darker, just hold them on the side and do my full head of extensions with everything else, because I usually did 150 strands, so I'd have 130 strands in, and at the end, use that pack of a little blonder and a little darker. And you know what? If I didn't need them to make the look better, I could just bury them underneath, inside there, anywhere, add to the fullness and thickness and just some of the dimension of the color. But if I needed to put them around the top, because that's where the color blend started, I could do it. A little more blonde, a little less brown, 2 blonde, 1 brown, 2 brown, 1 blonde, all brown, none at all. You had all these choices with the 10 per pack. I get really excited about the 10 per pack. I'm sorry, I went on a little bit of a rampage.
But that is the whole point. You know, the fact that you can customize the colors, scheming down, you know, or up, or creating whatever it is. And like I was saying earlier too, between the 2 tones, between the mixed colors, there's so many variety. There's so many options now, and it's absolutely amazing. And then you take in texture. You have like the natural body, or you have wavy and curly, and then you can mix and match those.
Too. Straight wavy and curly, right? Yeah, you know what? I was at a class one time and we made a mistake. I was ordering. I always said don't mix straight and curly because they're too far apart. Mix straight and wavy. You can do straight, wavy, and the straight's not straight; it's a little wavy. So it'd be like straight, wavy, straight, wavy, straight, wavy to get a little less wave than just wavy, or 2 straights per wavy, 2 straights, 1 wavy, 2 straight, or 2 wavies, 1 straight, 2 wavies, 1 straight. You know, you can enhance or decrease the curl by adding a straight or another wavy in there. But then I'm at a class, and thankfully the model is very outgoing, and the hairdresser says, "Uh-oh, I ordered wavy and curly, but I've got straight and curly." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I don't know, 1 straight, 1 curly. That's a quite a difference." I felt like they loved it. Some of the biggest mistakes have been the best learning creative experiences. The girl that got the hair, she was a little on the wild side, which worked out perfect. And she forever, the next few years, that's what she ordered and got. When her hair wore out and she needed new hair, it was
straight and curly.
Straight and curly. It was dark hair. I remember it was a dark brown, almost black. And she got half, like 7 or 8 packs of straight and 7 or 8 packs of curly. And that's what they mixed. And she loved the feel and look of it. Because our straight hair is not straight, you know. It's got a bit of a body wave.
Yeah, it's got that natural body. That's why we say that natural body, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, you're right. I always said you could mix for colors and highlights and lowlights and light up top, dark at the bottom to give that color melt look from one color to another. But yeah, you can do that along with, you know what else? If you're using, originally we had hair we called it ombre because that was the first like two different color look, and that line was so solid in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I started teaching people because people just hairdressers naturally kind of curve or straight part. You don't have to. You can have a zigzag part. You can place. Well, what I would do is I would do a part and say leave a little space in between and put all your blonde pieces in, and then go up a little bit and put in some brown pieces. Your placement pattern can be up down, up down, up down, and that if the placement is up down, up down, up here, well, so is the where the line was on the ombre hair.
The transition line from one color into the next color.
It was very solid in the early days. And so as we wanted to break up that line, well, you can break up that line by just moving the placement on the head, and it moves it way down the hair shaft. It also broke up the haircut line at the bottom. It wasn't straight. It was a little more uneven, flowy, more natural looking. So I know we just said this on Facebook a little while ago, but placement is everything. I mean, placement will help your color match, your cut match, your how real it looks. Placement, I'll have to say, might be more important than more important than the cut, more important than the color. Yeah, you got to get the color close. But if you don't get the color perfect, placement can help the color look better. I really feel like when we've done videos, this is actually proof. I'm looking at some bald heads on the shelf over there. When we do videos, the number one video is a hair extension cutting video. The ones that perform second best are all the placement videos. Mm-hmm. So people are interested in placement, and I think it's most important, but I don't know if everybody realizes that. I just want to throw it out there. So
I don't think people realize it because we spend a lot of time in classes talking about, when we're talking about mishaps and people have questions, I don't even know how's the right way how to explain it. Yeah. A third of the time it's the placement. 2/3 of the time it's the maintenance. I think maintenance and placement, it's got nothing necessarily to do with the cut or the color itself. More of how you put it in and how it's taken care of.
We did a class in the salon, I don't know, a few months ago. And my son's Brennan puts a lot of extensions in our salon. And so I had him kind of assist me. All the stylists had to part off a mannequin and put a weft in. And this has a lot to do with placement. And I showed him how dipping a little lower in the back and aiming up here. So a horseshoe for sure, but tilt the horseshoe lower in the back, come in a little more up on the side. And they all were like, oh, I see what that does. Oh my God, it's amazing. 2 hours later in the salon, Brennan texts me, Dad, I'm not going to say the name. He's like, the hairdresser working right next to me is not doing what you just taught this morning.
What you just taught this morning. Now, how much is she struggling to blend? How much more cutting and blending is going to be necessary
we didn't
if you
even
don't
get
have
to that
good
yet.
placement?
Yeah, and if they have enough hair on their head, maybe it doesn't matter. But it just proves how difficult it is for people to change and actually do. They can. I thought telling them wasn't enough, and they had to actually do it. So I actually did it. And then just the very next freaking client, they go right back to the habits.
Such a creature of habit, right? This has always been my joke. As creative as a hairdresser are, as creative as this industry is, man, is it so creature of habit at the same time.
Right, because we're humans and we hate to change. But when she hair came on the scene for me, I was doing great lengths right before that. But then right before that, I was gluing the hair in. I was cutting off of wefts. I did wefts for a good decade. So excited to cut little strands off and hot glue them in. Then so excited that the pre-tips came out. And then I find SoCap at a Birmingham, Alabama hair show. And it was less expensive than Great Lengths. And then that was a plus in the beginning. But the biggest plus was the amount of freaking colors. Do you even know what's on the she hair coloring anymore? Because I mean, I know it was
amount of how many shades are now?
How many shades are on the she hair coloring?
I think there's 173 colors now.
Oh my God. I remember when it was outrageous when we were in the 70s and
Oh yeah.
80s. And then they came out with like a couple of new rings with all the multicolors, with the rooted poly. I don't even know all the names of them, but all the ones that kind of look like a little bit of one color and then a lot of another. First 2 inches, the next 4 inches, halfway, it's more blended, melted. There's so many names for it. It was unbelievable. Now, we've also discontinued a few colors, so that brings it down, but very few compared to how many have been added. The stock and the inventory that we have in she hair, because some people think keratin's dying and it's like going away. And I just want to
Dying.
say, yeah,
It's actually trending up. We can't even
right
keep up
now,
with the trends. I am literally teaching 3 to 4 days a week. That's
yeah,
how popular it is. It's insane. So much so. Okay, here. I wish it. Well, I don't wish it was dying. Riddle me this. There
riddle
used
me
to
here.
be a time where you could get the powder and you can re-tip the extension. That was a trend for a minute. And
Yeah,
now
you
that
say
I
that. I never
I
saw the powder,
I
but
I hate TikTok
interesting.
so much, with these stupid trends that it comes up with, but now that's starting to come around again. People
You're
are
on
trying
TikTok.
to
Stop saying you hate it.
I can still complain. I'm complaining to you. You're the only person who listens to me. I can complain to
Oh,
you.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're the one
We're
that forced me
on
to do these things.
YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah,
double press the subscribe.
just once. So, she hair.
but
Why do you like she hair over any of the other keratin bonds? Have you tried any of the other ones?
I no, I've tried a lot. I've tried a lot of different brands of hair extensions, and I still, people will come in and ask me, "Have you tried this? Have you seen this?" Things like that. And other companies have approached me and will say, "Hey, since you use this brand and you educate for them, would you consider us?"
If you had to single out she hair against other keratin bonds, know them or don't know them, what are the biggest differences in a positive way? What are the biggest benefits differences? I would say the first one that comes to mind for me is the amount. Nobody has the amount of colors,
The color
right?
selection is out of control. There's too many
No,
color selection. It's
don't say
way
it.
too many. No,
Some people
hey,
love it.
it
Stop,
never ends. The coloring
stop.
never ends.
Yeah, but for us, it's a pain in the ass. I know because we have to inventory
Because
it. We
you
have
gotta
to teach
memorize
it.
all these colors, man. It's like,
Right. But for
man.
the end user, they're like, oh
No,
my God, it's like
it's
endless.
awesome.
Any color I want. Right. When people say, can you color the hair? I say, why would you? Just order the color you want or you need because we have so freaking many, over 100.
So
Some people's
it's
colorings have like 21 colors on it. Most
in
people's colorings have 30 to 40 colors. Over 100, getting close to 200 is outrageous,
it's such a
but it's
flex, Bernard,
exciting.
in class when you take the coloring out and you plop it on the table and it goes.
And it
It's
looks like
just
a
this
wig.
massive.
I've put it on my head before. It looks like a wig because it's so much. But you're right. You can't even show it in the beginning of a class because then you lose the attention because they're all like
It's too much.
they
It's too
grab it and
much.
patent it. What else? What's the other
So I
huge
like the fact that the
differentiation?
keratin bond is a perfect size. It's a perfect mini rectangle. And the hair that's attached to that bond goes all the way through the bond. It's not just attached at the bottom of the bond. It goes all the way through. And the reason why I like that
Both ways,
both
sideways
ways,
too,
the width and
evenly
the
distributed. So if you were to
yeah,
cut it in half or thirds or fourths, and it wasn't
that's
always like
exactly.
that in the very beginning. And
Mm.
some other companies are using old-fashioned methods where they're plopping that hair on that hand stamp machine, and all the hair is pushed over to one side or the other or to the middle. And it's difficult to get consistency if you want to do a half bond, a third of bond. You're right. She hair has come a long way with the tooling to make the bonds incredibly consistent. That's a good point.
Yeah. And the reason why I like that so much is because I personally do trim down the bond to make the material less before I go to apply it to the client's head. And my personal opinion, the less material in the head, the less chances there are for something to go wrong. And the more comfortable it is, the more hidden it remains. It just looks better all the way around. That's my personal opinion on it. I know some people, they don't like cutting the bonds, they use the whole thing, but it is
I
what
know.
it is.
And it's a lot of people in Europe don't cut the bonds down either. But what we did, we don't really. I think Great Lengths cut them down, and we don't even know why they did it. And so people would ask, "Why do you cut the bond down?" I said, "I don't know. I've tried a whole bond. I've tried a half bond. They both stay in. I've done tests on each side of the head. And I thought, you know what? If I can cut it down in half and it stays in as well, it looks better. It feels better. It's more invisible on the head. So let me try and cut a little more."
So if you see
I got to the
specifically,
point.
how far do you cut yours?
Well, I was going to say, I got to the point where they all fell out of a lady's head.
Because you cut them down too far?
Yeah. It was too much. And so then I had to pay for that hair. And when she complained, they're all falling out. And I'd done her hair 3 or 4 times before that over the last year or two. So we knew it was something she did or I did. And I knew I did something different. I was pushing the envelope. I was pushing the limits. I was testing. And that was an expensive test and a whole bunch of hours of fixing. But I had the integrity to do it. And I found the limit. And that is why I'm a good educator, because I can now tell you.
You're right. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Well,
this is $2,000. Don't do that.
You're not going to want to cut the bonds this short. Why? Well, just trust me.
It's so wild. Another thing, I how you say the heat setting on the unit. You don't need this.
Yes.
Actually, She Hair Extensions uses warm fusion, not hot
The
heat.
lowest heat setting on the market.
A lot of people don't understand what that means.
No, you want to talk? I want to talk about it too, but go ahead.
You have hot heat, which brings the temperature.
A hot heat. Oh, that's revolutionary.
Right. Brings the temperature up to like 400 plus degrees. All right. Warm fusion is less than 400 degrees. The
Reference point. What are most flat irons, curling irons at as far as heat? Around
a curling iron goes up to 10 on the dial, and there's no setting under rather than that.
But what's the Fahrenheit of these hot tools? I want everybody to get a reference point of what we're talking
so
about.
a flat iron, most people are using 400 to 450 degrees.
Right.
Hairdressers are always complaining, saying you should only be using 350, but clients are using 450.
The professional irons go up. The highest I've ever seen one set is you could go to 450. Right. So 450 is like 400 to 450 is slightly dangerous if you hold it too long in one spot on hair.
Slightly.
I like 450. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that another day. But technically, staying still on the hair as long as it takes to heat up a keratin bond probably shouldn't be over 350 or lower. And so, what is our machine set at? Well, what should you set our machine at? Because it
doesn't matter. Even at maximum temperature, our machines in Celsius at maximum temperature are 150 degree Celsius, which I didn't learn. I didn't.
Fahrenheit.
300.
Okay.
It's so wild. Did you know if you press the plus and minus button, you know how you make the temperature go up and down with the plus minus? If you press both of those together at the same time, it'll convert it from Celsius back to Fahrenheit.
And stay there, or just for the second?
No. It'll stay. No, it'll stay. Then you have to do it again.
God.
Yeah, these years. I know, right? Try it on one of your machines. Try it on one of your machines today.
I didn't know.
Because somebody kept saying, "What's 150 converted to Fahrenheit?" And we're like, "All right, let's get the Googles. Let's ask the phone."
Yeah, ask Google. So
And then I was sitting there messing around.
You can go hotter on our tool though,
no,
but that's
can't.
where
150 is the
highest.
Yeah.
I know it comes on at 150.
But that's the max temp.
I thought you could go up from there because we always go down to about 120, 125.
You're remembering the older generations.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, the older generations used to go to, even actually the older generations, I think was only 155 or 160. Yeah. It wasn't that much hotter.
I just remember the hotter we could get it, the better. At one point, we thought it was speed. And then somebody, the world educator from Italy, comes up behind me at a hair show and he says, "You don't need that heat." And I said, "Why? It's faster." He said, "Yeah, but you're destroying the integrity of the bond." And he said, watch this. It's just so, it's not much slower. But if you let that bond slowly spread, you keep the integrity of the keratin. It attaches to more of the hair. It's not bubble. Because in the old days, we literally wanted it. We called it a purging tool. We wanted it to bubble. We said it was bubbling out the impurities. So that's what I was taught at a class. The bubbling is bubbling out.
Were you getting the spider web? Was the hair just like stringing across the world?
But, I mean, it wasn't like I was going, oh my goodness, I slipped right off my chair.
You were doing an exorcism on the keratin bond?
Well, that's what I was going to say. It wasn't like confession or anything. It wasn't like I needed to be more pure. So I don't know what bubbling out the impurities meant. Maybe we thought it meant it was going to stay better. But so when we converted to these tools that open and close, at first they just heated at the bottom. So we did need more heat to drive through to the top. Then they heated at the top and the bottom. And that's where the progression of, we kept lowering the heat as we brought the heat from the top to the bottom. Then we changed the formula of the keratin a little. So even she hair went through a growth process where we had inconsistent bonds and used a lot more heat. And we got lower and lower and lower to the point where one of the distributors recommended at the time, like, why are we calling it hot fusion or heated fusion, hot fusion? We're not even that hot anymore. You can literally touch the tip of the tool and not burn your fingers. We need to call it something else. And somebody was like, warm fusion. And so it was a great idea because it was such low heat that it was a lot harder to damage hair when you stay still with heat on the hair for a long period of time as you're softening. I like to even say softening the keratin because you're barely melting it.
Well, we're not, but that's the other thing. What I love about the She hair extensions is that you cannot, if you're using the right temperature, you cannot melt the bonds. And even with the Flat Magic, the current generation of machine, you cannot, even at max temp, you cannot melt the bond. All you could do is warm it up. And it doesn't spider web, it doesn't explode, it doesn't evaporate, it doesn't bubble, it doesn't do any of that anymore. And which is nice is when I'm teaching a class, it's really fun because a lot of hairdressers will sit there and they'll tap away, or as soon as they see the bond start to spread, they immediately take the tool off, and it's like, leave it on there, let it spread. It makes it more pliable. It's easier to work with. And you're like, I don't want to hurt the bond. I don't want to hurt the bond. So I love the fact that with the current technology in the bond and in the machine, we're just warming it up and softening it, like you're saying, to make it pliable. You
reminded me of two things. When you say it's spreading, you're right. The first thing they do is they want to let go. But that keratin is a little firmer, and the hair is sitting on top. So as soon as it starts to spread sideways, it hasn't necessarily gotten soft enough for the client's hair to press down into the keratin. So that was one of the downsides of lowering the heat and slowing people down a little bit to perfect the technique. Is you're right. They were so used to that $20 tool on Amazon from China that was like 600 degrees. I mean,
I know that thing was insane.
I think they were. I mean, I had a friend say they dropped one on the floor one time, and they were in an older house, and they didn't realize it was there, and it melted through and fell to the next floor. Through the floor to the next level. It's like these suckers got hot. Luckily, it didn't burn the building down. They just pulled it back up by the wire when it fell through. But the lower temperature, you had to change your technique a little bit. Now the mechanical action of a plier-like tool, a little firmer press is important because you're pushing the client's hair down into that softening keratin. And then when you take the tool off, it's not as hot as 600 degrees, so it's not going to burn your fingers, but it's also going to cool off and harden quicker. So you had that balance that you had to realize, like, if we're going to heat this bond up, when I go to put the tool down, I can't have a conversation with my neighbor and then look back and then roll it or fold it. I got to do it immediately, right?
But that makes you more efficient. And now you're not sitting there spending 4 or 5 hours doing a head of extensions. You're banging this thing out in an hour or two. And when I tell people, they're like, oh, how long it takes you to do a head of keratin bonds? About I said, if I'm goofing around, maybe about 2 hours. They're like, no, a full head. I'm like, yeah, what else are we talking about over here? and it just blows
Yeah.
people's mind because the
Still, most
technique is
people are
that
going to take.
efficient.
Yeah, and still most people are going to take 2 or 3 hours to do keratin bonds. It is going to be more time consuming than a lot of other techniques out there. But the plus side was, and this has always been, I don't know, America's thought process on if things are good. If it costs more and it takes more time, it's probably better. And that's okay. A lot of things are that way. Not everything, but it's okay if it takes more time and it's customized to that person, because if you're paying a lot of attention to get each little section just right and you're just spending a half a day with that one client, I don't think that it's a bad thing necessarily. I don't have a problem with taking a little more time to do a client like that, and it can be better. But I want to, especially if you're getting real customized, that to me, you've been doing this a long time and you're really fast, so you can't sell it like everybody can be as fast as you or me doing.
No, but the fact of the
Keratin
matter
bond.
is that you could still bang out a full. Okay, so the average person, no, that's not true. Because when I'm teaching classes, I do time trials. With the first half of the day is just teaching you the
Time
technique of how to
trial.
get it. You've seen me do it.
Loser. Loser.
You've seen me do it when I've been down by you. It should take you 1 minute to do a bond from start to finish. Taking the sections, shield, bond, folding, manipulating, wrapping, taking off. From start to finish, that should be 1 minute. If you're taking longer than a minute, then it should take you a minute and a half. But the goal should be to achieve 1 minute per bond or less.
That's
And the
interesting.
beginning, you should aspire to be at 1 to 1.5 minutes. If it's taking you longer than 1.5 minute per bond, then
There's no doubt people take too long.
yeah,
per bond.
that's why it takes 4 or 5 hours. That's why you can only do one head of an extension in one day.
Right.
And
Right.
if that's your pace, I guess I don't know. But for the stylists out there that are complaining, saying, "Oh, I can never get faster," no, yes, you can. You can do
Yeah.
it. Get yourself a stopwatch. Play a game with your client, because they're sitting there. Mind you, that's the worst job. Is the client has to sit there for 4 or 5 hours on their butt, not moving, trying to
Yeah.
sit still like a statue, so you can
Or peeing.
do what you need to do,
Or peeing.
or sitting still peeing in their chair.
No.
This
they
just
got-
became a Depends commercial over here. What is going on?
Right. Right.
So-
I need to smoke a cigarette. I need to go to the bathroom.
I'll tell
How
you.
about lunch?
The other thing, talking about doing it for a long time, I have seen just about everything come and go in the world of hair extensions. With the She hair extensions, I love the quality of it. It is just the hair itself is unmatched. And it's been like that consistently throughout the decades. And the one thing about that is, trends come and go, politics come and go, people's ideology comes and go. To me, She hair extensions has consistently upheld its position through all three factors: through trends, through politics, and through
And
ideology.
had hair and good quality, even through COVID, when many hair companies ran out completely and closed down. Now, we've run out of a few colors here and there, a few colors we've had some challenges with, but for the most part, like high 90s, maybe 97, 98% of inventory being available. And like you said, I know everybody says we got the highest quality Remy human hair, but even at that level, there's better and worse Remy hair. And so you're right. She hair, the
Well,
quality
there's
of
that
hair.
Remy hair people made a
never
big
been
thing
matched.
about. There was the ethical source people made a big to do about. I had one time somebody come and ask me, "Is your hair corpse hair?" And I said, "What are you talking about? I had never heard that one
anybody-
before."
Does anybody? That used to be my joke behind the chair when I'm doing a client, and they go, "Where the hair come from?" And I've already got a little bit of hair on their head when they say it, and without hesitation, I would always say dead people. They go, I say dead people. It's already on their head. What are they going to do? I think enough people know that's not true now. I think any company uses hair from dead people.
So how does that work? You just go to the cemetery on the weekend and you start digging up graves? Like what? How does?
Well, that's what I'm
what does
thinking.
that even
It's
mean?
probably not even legal. Right as the family leaves a funeral, like, "Goodbye, Uncle John. You were such a great guy." and then they're like, they close the casket, and then everybody leaves. They open it back up and shave his head, and his hair. Nobody's using hair. That doesn't happen.
Is this
Can
why?
you imagine?
Is this
Can
why?
you imagine the family comes back and says, "Oh, we wanted to get the rings and the necklace. We just wanted them on." And you're like,
No,
"Ooh,
we've already
we
sealed
can't.
the casket.
We've already closed this casket." Our hair. I mean, there's no. I don't know why do people think hair comes from dead people? I mean, now the only positive remark I can make about that is hair is not actually alive. That's why you can't repair it.
Oi, oi. All right.
So you could shave dead people's hair and use it because it's not changing.
We're gonna come back to that argument again.
It's not. But after somebody dies, if they shave their
All
head,
right.
and
What
hair
about
stays good, and
if you're an
bags for
organ
years.
donor, does that count?
Man, I don't know. Why? That's interesting. Is that a comment?
No, it's what I say. The only way
Yeah.
it can come from a dead person is if the person is an organ donor, and
That's
when
true. And
you know.
and then we'd have to get on the list saying we want their hair, and
But
not
that's an
everybody has
agreed
to-
upon thing. That's not like
Right.
we're
It's
hi
only-
ho to the local cemetery.
Yeah, I think we
So-
spent enough time on
Yeah.
this. stupid
Anyways,
topic.
that's the goofiest
But
thing
you're
I've
right.
ever heard.
It's the only way it could be legal. I think it's hilarious, and I like to use it as a joke, but most people know that's not true anymore. So where does the hair come from, Eddie, since you brought that up?
Comes from all over the world. You know, we have free candy vans. We just drive town to town offering shaving heads. The other thing is because this is the Profitable Stylist Academy, you know,
Yeah.
the profit margins on doing hair extensions is fantastic. It's
Yep.
great value for the client that's receiving the hair extension service. It's great value for the stylist performing the hair extension service for their paycheck to pay their bills and live. It's great
That's
for
why
the
I
salon.
said it didn't matter how fast it was. You were talking about the minute and a half. I'm thinking most hairdressers would be happy spending all day doing one head of hair extensions. You can go to lunch with the client, get to know them really well, just relax. You know what I loved about a long extension service back in the day? Casper, you got to lay down, boy. We're not going anywhere yet. What I loved about
That's
it
where
was...
the hair comes from Casper.
Yeah, from Casper. What I loved about it was I was never sweating nervous running late for the next client. When I got an extension client, that's all I scheduled for the day. In the early days, then I started getting a little aggressive, doing 2 and 3 a day with assistants and helpers. But in the early days, when it was just me as a hairdresser behind the chair working next to other people, if I got an extension client, I knew that was about an $800 to $1,000 profit for the day. And I thought, $1,000 in a day. If I don't know how many working days there are in a year. I know there's 52 weeks in a year. And God, just one hair extension client per week was going to be enough money for me back then at 50,000. So if I just did 2 a week, made 100,000 a year, and didn't even work the other 3 days of the week, fine. But if you figure that out, 52 weeks. Let's say do 50 to make it easier.
So if you do
50
five work,
Yeah,
if you
50
do
times
Monday
5.
through Friday, 52 weeks, 130 working days, 130 grand if it's $1,000 a pop.
No. You're doing something wrong. $1,000 a day. It's got to be more than that.
1.3 million.
It might be, because that's what I'm saying. Let's just do 50 weeks. 50 weeks, 50,000 times 5. 250,000.
Yeah.
So, you got a few more weeks in there. So 200. If I could make $250,000. Now, I never could get to the point where I was doing 1 a day, but I was doing 3 or 4 a month, and so I was making good money. I know you're still doing some math over there.
I was right, but I was off. So 52 weeks times 5 days a week would be 260, not 130. I was off. So
it's 260,000 a year.
It's 260,000 a year. Yeah.
I was just rounding down to make the math easier, but yeah. So
Yeah.
if you can do 1 extension client a day and make $1,000 on that client, which is very possible in most techniques, especially back in the day in Chic, we weren't doing that many, but that's how we were able to change our income into this much more livable income, much more comfortable place in our lives. We were taking 30 and 40,000 a year income people, even myself, and saying, let's do a few heads of extensions during the month. And now I'm making 70, 80, 120,000 a year just having one or two new extension clients a month. Then when I got to the point where it was 2 or 3, I was buying a better vehicle, you know, putting new tires on a little sooner. So extensions changes everybody's life.
Because you get more education, you become a better hairdresser. Now your haircuts are better, your hair color is better, everything is better.
The client too.
No, that's what I'm saying. The client looks better too. Yeah.
Yeah, the client's getting a better life. And then the thing that Jude brought into my life was the second person. I'm like, who's the second person? The person who loves the person that got the extensions. I'm like, oh, you know, my wife never wore extensions till recently. So I never really got that. But he was like, do you know how happy I was seeing first of all, how happy I was seeing how hot my wife was with more hair. Yeah, okay, so that's understandable. As a guy, we're a lot more about visuals. And he's like, but then she thought she was hotter. She felt more attractive. She felt like everything that she wore looked better. So when she felt better, I was happy she was happy. And I thought, I never thought about that. The husband, the kids, the girlfriends, like, oh God, we're so glad our friend's happy. So yeah, it's crazy, the byproducts of making a customer happy. And extensions is not the only way to do it, but it was the first thing that I did that I got a hug and a kiss from a client at the end of, because they were like, I haven't had hair like this since I was in high school. And they start crying, and then they hug me, and I'm like, wow, this is better than the money. And the money was great.
No, I know, but it really is a life-changing experience to give somebody that level of happiness. Yeah, it really is a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
Share that with us. Let us know what you guys think. Yeah.
Peace out.
It's awesome. Thank you all for watching. We will catch you all next week.